Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. Frank here. Been a busy week for me. Went to pull out the tractor this morning to cut the grass, which has been growing like crazy because it's been a pretty wet summer. This is, July 14, something like that. So it's been hot and it's been humid and the grass has been growing like crazy. Picking a dozen tomatoes a day at this point from the garden. It's soon to be overwhelmed. It will start giving away. Okay, like I said, I went out to get the tractor to cut the grass at my Cub Cadet 108. It's the one I've owned since 1979. So it's a 1972 model, so it's 53 years old. It's got a replacement engine, obviously. And I've worked on it several times over the decades. But it's my weekly mower, and it's got a 44-inch deck on it, cuts great, runs great, starts every time, never a problem with it. Except routine maintenance, which is what I discovered this morning, and which is why we're talking right now. I just pulled it into the shop. I had to push the 4x4 out of the way. I haven't been working on the 4x4 for a couple of weeks. I'm trying to source another rear axle. I think I may have a line on one about 40 miles from here. I'm waiting to hear from the guy. So as many of you have suggested, the Cub Cadet 4x4 would look better with a second rear axle. And I agree it would look better. I've been struggling with the decision because of the additional space it will take, but on the other hand, it'll be underneath the bed, so maybe it won't take any additional space. So anyway, that's coming up in a week or two. Be back on the 4x4. Today, I've got to do some work on my lawnmower, get the grass cut. I filled up with gas, did that, checked the oil, put air in the front tires. As I was doing that, I noticed the front tire on the left side was a little bit loose. So let me show you what I've discovered. I've got the tractor jacked up here, just have a floor jack underneath the front of the frame. Wheels are off the ground, and this of course is my 108, though it has, the engine replaced, as I mentioned. So it's a great tractor, as all these Cub Cadets are. So the front wheels are similar to other similar garden tractors of the era, John Deere, for example, maybe Wheel Horse, I don't know. I'm not that familiar with Wheel Horse. It just has a single bolt in the spindle. Undo that bolt and the wheel comes off. And here's why the front wheel was loose. The wheel bearing totally shot there. And of course, on this side, it's still intact, but this is the issue. So got a wheel bearing issue here, and I figured, well, I'm working on the one side, I might as well look at the other side. I pulled the wheel off and it left the bearing on the spindle, so it just came right out of the wheel, and then the other bearing fell out. So these bearings are a little bit loose. Now that's not too much of a deal, because the bolt holds it all together. But I'm going to replace all 4 bearings. So let's go see in my drawer here what I have. Wrong drawer. I saw my Cub Cadet parts. All right, so there's one bearing. There's another bearing. These are different types of bearings here. Let's see, this is another wheel bearing. And there's a 4th one. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and replace all 4 wheel bearings. I'll show you how I do that. All right, I'm going to knock the bearings out of these wheels. That bearing doesn't look that bad. The race is still in this other side. It's still in there. I broke it. Let me get a pair of pliers and pull that out. Oh, that was easy. Okay. Get the other wheel. Right, these bearings don't look, they feel fine. That's not a tight fit, but should stay. That's the problem with these wheels after 50 years. Once you wear out a bearing and it wears on the bore, then you're kind of hosed. I mean, there's repair methods, but all right, so that one's not in there, but there is a bolt which holds the wheel on and presses this against the knuckle so it won't come out. All right, that's fixed. Since I've got the tractor here in the shop and I pushed my other equipment out of the way, make a little more room here, I'm going to go ahead and take the deck off, sharpen the blades. Should have done this last winter or at the beginning of the season, but You know how things get away from you and you kind of lose lose the sense of urgency. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the deck off. I'll show you how to do it the easy way, or I guess to me it's the easy way. If I can get a light for you. All right, so the deck attaches pretty easily. There are 2 hanger pins. Here's one of them. All right, so that comes out of this support arm here. And then there's this rod. And then this rod underneath here, not this top one, but this one behind here, fits in it like an eye, lifting eye. So we'll go around the other side, pull the other hanger pin, and we push the deck back, and these rods will come out of these lifting eyes. All right, so here's the other pin. There we go. Got that pulled out. Normally you put it on the side here and it holds it. And let's see. Right here is the lifting eye. So roll the deck forward. Okay. The arms, the arm over there has come out of that lifting eye. The arms out of this one. Then next thing to do is go ahead and lift up the support frame using the there. So that lifts up these eyes. Pull the belt off the center pulley. And the whole deck slides right out. Now I just replaced the belts a year or so ago, and they normally last 3 or 4 years. If you're buying belts for these old Cub Cadets, you need to buy the International Harvester belts. Don't go to the hardware store or Tractor Supply and buy belts, because they won't be the right belts, even if you know the length. These are 3/8 inch belts. They're not 1/2 inch belts. So you need to get the right belt. International Harvester belts are built for this application. They last much longer. They don't roll out of the pulleys. So you need the International Harvester belts. All right, I'm going to get a pair of gloves. We're going to turn this deck over, pull the blades off. Actually, they don't look bad at all. Yeah, you don't want to you can't put a sharp, real sharp edge on them. I'm going to say, I mean, it's got a pretty good edge on them already. I don't know that I would even sharpen these, because even sharpening them, you wouldn't get them much sharper than they are. They've only got a season and a half on them. Yeah, I'm just looking at the edges of the blade here, and they don't look bad. Let's On this deck, all 3 blades are the same size, which is not true of a lot of the Cub Cadet decks. I'll show you what the edges look like. So, I mean, they're not bad, right? This one's a little more worn, and it was near the mouth, the discharge rather. So I'm going to put this one on the inside, one of these toward the discharge. I think I'm just going to put these in the vise one at a time and hit them with the angle grinder. It's a good idea to put just a little blunt edge on that so that it doesn't, the sharp edge doesn't fold over. These are actually in really nice shape. All right, so this one of all of them is the worst one. So I'm trying to take this curve out of the blade, out of the leading edge. Edge there. So I get it straighter, it's not perfect. All right, let's see. Let's see how well balanced it is. If it's balanced, it'll stay wherever you put it. Pretty close. These other ones I didn't take enough off to change the balance. So I think they're fine. that's all you got to do to check the balance on them. All right, put them back on the track, on the deck. All right, let's see. We'll do this one here. Here. This was the one that had the biggest bow in it, so we'll put it back here. Back before they had electric battery-powered impact hammer drills, impact wrenches. Getting these off, and before I had an air compressor, when I first got a tractor, didn't have an air compressor, didn't have an impact wrench. They didn't have the battery-powered ones like they do now. So getting these off was an 1 1/8 open-end wrench, box-end wrench, and a couple blocks of wood to keep the rest of the blades from turning. And sometimes it was a real challenge because if they were on there tight, it was really a job. But impact wrenches changed everything. Okay, so there's no timing requirement. The blades, clear each other by 1/4 of an inch. But the way they're staggered, offset, ensures that even though they miss each other here, the moving forward, there's no gap. Because this one's cutting here, where this one starts cutting, this one picks up. So the circles overlap in straight lines. They're not side by side. That's why they're staggered like that. Okay, that's done. These decks are not lightweight. All right, get out of the way. All right, let's grease the spindles while we're at it. Got the grease gun out. Let's grease the steering knuckles. All right, so you get those two lifting eyes over those arms. There we go. All right, those arms are through those lifting eyes. We Just need to get that pin clicked into that arm. Over on the other side. That pin clicked into that one. And then it's just a matter of threading the belt around the center pulley on the deck. And there are two things to do for that. One, push this in and hook it. That takes some tension off the belt. And then loosen those bolts. Takes tension off the tensioning arm. It gives you a little more slack on the belt. And then it's just a matter of winding the belt around the pulley. There we go. To me, that's by far the easiest way to do it. I used to try to put the belt on and push the deck back and tension the belt that way, but it's easier to just wind it on. All right. A little slack up on there. There's two idler pulleys here. All right, got the axle greased. There's a grease fitting up in here at the center of the axle for the pin that the axle floats on. Kingpins, steering box, spindles. I put a new air filter on it this morning. The old one was pretty dirty. I have a part of the yard is real dusty down by the waterfront. Since I'm on salt water here, the grass does not grow real well down by the waterfront, so you wind up with dust, sand. All right, folks, as you can see, she starts right up. That is the best tractor. Like I said, I've had that tractor since 1979. I'll tell you a story. Got married in 1976. Right out of college, married my college sweetheart. Still married, almost 49 years now. So we moved to a nearby city. I got a job engineering. She got a job. She was a teacher at the time. She eventually moved into education management at a local utility company, and she was running a training program in that company. So she was an executive in that company. So, and then of course I worked for electric utility and nuclear power plants for 15 years, went into management, finance, got my MBA, and eventually moved into IT. Was what they call Director of Client Services, which is basically a mini CIO for the nuclear division of the company. And then eventually left, retired from the electric utility and went to a local insurance company where I was Director of Product Development when I retired in 2015, 2016. So I will tell you, but I'll tell you a story. Go back to right after we got married. We worked for about a year. We were renting a little house. We saved money and we bought our first house. It was new construction, a brick ranch, 1,500 square foot brick ranch on an acre and a half. And I hadn't really thought about it. I had a push mower for the little rental house, which was on a little postage stamp. And so faced with cutting, I didn't have to cut the whole acre and a half because there was some woods, but I had to cut a lot of it, at least an acre. So we went and looked for a riding mower. I got this little sit-on rider from a estate sale. It was, I guess it might have been a Sears. I guess it was a Sears Craftsman. Little maybe 5 horsepower, where you sit on top of the engine basically, and you got a little steering bar. Single, like a 24-inch blade or something, and it worked okay, but it struggled with the acre of grass, especially if I didn't keep up with it. And since we were both working, I mean, it was in a rainy season, it was tough to keep up with it. So we went to a local International Harvester tractor dealer because my father-in-law, my wife's father, had a Cub Cadet 128. On his recommendation, that's what we went and looked at, local International Harvester dealer, and they had a 108, used 108. Now, at the time I didn't know how used it was or anything, but it came with a mower deck, and it was $1,500. So 1978 or 79, $1,500. So that was an enormous amount of money for a couple of newlyweds. So we paid the $1,500. I think they must have delivered it because I would have had no way to move it. And it cut the grass, and I ran that tractor every week or week and a half, cutting grass, acre and a half there. Then 5 years later, we moved to another property where we had 10 acres. I didn't cut the 10 acres with that tractor, but I cut about 2 acres around the house with it. Acre and a half to 2 acres around the house with it, and a Ford 2000 with a bush hog to cut 5 or 6 acres of pasture. So for 25 years or something, that tractor cut the grass around that house. Then in 2005 or 5, I got the Kubota, my first Kubota BX23, and it had a mower deck, a 54-inch deck. So I started using that to cut those 2 acres and took the Cub Cadet out to a house we bought near here on the river. Not this house, but a different house where it was an acre and a half again, or almost an acre and a half. So I used the Cub Cadet to cut the grass there every other week. So the tractor which I just pulled out of here has been in continuous use, mowing grass, an acre, acre and a half, every other week for 46 years, right? 79 to 25. 46 years. So that's a testament to the longevity of these tractors. Now, full disclosure, I have worked on that tractor. I've replaced the clutch twice over those 40-some years. It's got a different mower deck on it, though I still have the mower deck that I got with it. It's just slightly smaller than the one I'm running now. And the engine's been rebuilt. So now the engine's only been rebuilt because of my mistake. It was sitting in the shed at the other house we had before. We bought in 2006. We had till 13. Anyway, it was sitting in the shed over the winter. I pulled it out in the spring and started driving it, and I was getting black soot coming out of the exhaust on the mower deck. And anyway, I overheated it, ruined the engine basically, because a mouse had built a nest in the fins underneath the tins, the cooling tins, the cooling shroud, had stuffed it with crap. So with no cooling, the engine overheated, warped the head, blew the head gasket, ruined the piston and the cylinder. So took it to a shop, actually took it back to the place I bought the tractor from. They rebuilt the engine, but they didn't bore the cylinder. He just put a new piston in it and rings and said good. Well, that lasted about 10 hours and the piston started slapping in the cylinder, making so much noise. I took it back to him. I said, pull the engine out, took it back to him. I said, you guys screwed up. This engine has failed already. And of course, first thing he does is look at the journal bearing to make sure that I didn't run it out of oil or whatever. And of course, that was fine. But the piston was so sloppy in the cylinder. The oil had turned gray from aluminum, because the piston's aluminum shavings, or aluminum metal in the oil. You could see the glitter in the oil. So it was clear something. Anyway, on their dime, and I'd paid $800 for that rebuild. It's before I got into rebuilding engines and stuff. And it's the reason I got into rebuilding engines, because of that experience. And actually, now that I think about it, that's exactly what happened. They screwed it up so bad that from then on, I decided to do it myself. Now, they did make it right. They rebuilt that engine. I put it in a different tractor. Meanwhile, I'd gotten into Cub Cadets. I'd bought some Cub Cadets. I had another tractor with an engine. I said, I'm going to rebuild it. I might have put that 10 back in that tractor and run it for a while, but I eventually replaced it with a 12. So that I had rebuilt from scratch. I'd disassembled, taken to the machine shop. They bored it oversized. I bought the oversized piston rings, put the engine back together, and it's been running great in that tractor now, I'm going to say 10 years. So from that point on, I rebuilt the Cub Cadet engines. I would buy a tractor and I'd pull the engine apart, rebuild it. And I could rebuild it for about $350, $400. Piston rings, gasket set, bearings. Take the block to the machine shop. They'd bore it. I'd give them the piston and the rings. Actually, the process I would do is I would take them the block and they would measure it, and the crank, and they would tell me what I needed in terms of oversized piston and undersized connecting rod. And I would then buy that, and I would take that stuff to the machine shop, and then they would machine the block and turn the crank, polish the crank, whatever, and then give that back to me. 300, 3 1/4, something like that to do that, maybe 280 on a couple of the first ones. So then I would bring them home and put everything back together and paint it, stick it in a tractor. So I've done, I don't know, 6 or 8 engine rebuilds, and most of my tractors now have rebuilt engines in them. The one exception is this 4x4 that I'm working on now. And if you haven't seen the Cub Cadet 4x4, at the end I'll put the link up to, on the end screen, I'll put a thumbnail for the 4x4 Cub Cadet articulating tractor that I'm currently working on. I'll show you, just to turn the camera around so you can see it here. So this is it. It's an articulated tractor, hydraulic steering, getting ready to put a dump bed on it. All right, so I've been yakking for 10 minutes. I don't mean to go on so long, but some of you may get a kick out of that experience I had with the dealer supposedly rebuilt engine. Tell me if you've had a similar experience. And I know a lot of you guys do the same kind of stuff I'm doing. Rebuild engines and everything. Work on your cars, work on your tractors. You wouldn't be watching this if you weren't interested in this stuff. For those of you that have gotten into the mechanical side of tractors and cars too, tell me what got you started. I mean, for me, really it was being frustrated with what the dealer did on that engine got me into rebuilding my own engines. I will tell you, I have been so busy this summer, I'm running behind on the videos now on the articulating tractor. I'll get back on it here in the next week or so, but I have been doing some traveling. I've been spending time on the garden, yard work, everything but my tractor. And it's tough when chores get in the way of, you know, having fun out here in the shop. But I'm back out here and the air conditioning's running, so I'm doing okay. All right, it was fun spending the afternoon with you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.